On this episode of Just Informed Talk, they never thought she was gonna lose. Well, guess what? She did. And now President Trump has made it his goal to expose her and everyone else that was involved in the Russia collusion hoax that was used to meddle in the 2016 election. Enjoy.
Perfect.
Joining us now exclusively on the phone is the President of the United States. Mr. President, thank you for taking time for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Sean, very much. It's an honor.
I appreciate you being here. You really have not had an opportunity to react and respond to the Mueller report, the AG's letter that summarized the report, that exonerated you. No collusion after all these years, as you have been claiming. He left the decision as it relates to obstruction to the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General. They quickly said, no, that does not rise to that level, and I wanted to get your reaction.
Well, we're very happy about it. It's gone on for a long time, almost since the beginning of my term. And, you know, if you look at it, we've done so much despite that. But it was a cloud. It was a cloud that most people didn't believe, fortunately. They spent more than $30 million, hundreds of interviews of people, in some cases very innocent people that were put through the ringer, millions of document pages, millions and millions of document pages. And after that, there was no collusion, there was no obstruction. It was such a ridiculous thing that happened. On the other hand, you know, you look at how did this start? How did it start? You had dirty cops, you had people that are bad FBI folks. I know so many, they're incredible people, but at the top, they were not clean, to put it mildly. And what they did to our country was a terrible, terrible thing.
Mr. President, we've talked a lot on this program about the FISA abuse scandal, and this is what we know, that in August of 2016, we know Bruce Ohr warned everybody at the DOJ and the FBI that Christopher Steele hated you, that Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier, that it was not verified. But still, in October, and then 3 renewal application warrants approved, we're told by the Grassley Graham memo, the bulk of information came from that phony dossier. Even Andrew McCabe said, no dossier, no FISA warrant. There were Russian lies disseminated to the American people before the election, but it also violated the rights of Carter Page and gave a backdoor into your campaign for spying, which I know the media made fun of at the time when you said it happened.
Well, when I said there could be somebody spying on my campaign, a lot of things happened. It was like it went wild out there. They couldn't believe that I could say such a thing. And as it turned out, that was small potatoes compared to what went on. When you look at what happened and when it happened and the money that was spent, the millions and millions on the phony dossier, and then they used the dossier to start things, and there was no truth whatsoever. It was a fraud, and paid for by Hillary Clinton and paid for by the Democrats and the DNC. It's hard to believe. If you wrote this as a novel, nobody would buy it. It would be a failure because it would be too unbelievable. Nobody would believe it's possible, the things that went on. And we're getting to the bottom of it, and it's got to be. I mean, you can never allow this to happen to another president. This can never, ever happen to a president again, Sean. That was a disgrace and an embarrassment to our country that they were allowed to get away with this. I wanted to let other people do it, and I wish it didn't take so long. You know, we're talking about really longer than, if you think about it, longer than Mueller. It was many months before that Strzok and Page were talking about the insurance policy, right? An insurance policy, just in case Hillary Clinton lost. They wanted an insurance policy against me. And what we were playing out until just recently was the insurance policy. They wanted to do a subversion. It was treason. It was really treason. If the Republican Party had done this to the Democrats, if we had done this to President Obama, you'd have 100 people in jail right now, and it would be treason. It would be considered treason, and they'd be in jail for the rest of their lives. but it worked out the other way. And, it's just really a horrible situation and an incredible outcome, or certainly very close to an outcome. And we'll have to see how it all started. But I'm going to leave that to other people, including the Attorney General and others, to make that determination. But it's very, very important for our country to know, because in 50 years from now, in 100 years from now, if somebody tries the same thing, they have to know that the penalty will be very, very great if and when they get caught.
Russian operatives claim to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump.
We are looking at the possibility that the President of the United States and those around him during an election campaign colluded with a hostile foreign power to undermine the basis of our democracy.
This is evidence of willingness to commit collusion.
It does look like collusion. It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence.
So this picture that the president is so desperate to avoid, this picture of collusion, begins to fill in.
The president sees the walls closing in and is lashing out.
He's desperate. He's obviously flailing around because he feels the walls closing in.
Mr. President, I could play an hour's worth of coverage of that for 2 years it's gone on. What is your answer? What is your reaction to the media? I know you've been very critical. Fake news.
Well, as many people have said, and fortunately we've had some incredible people that really were fair. And, when you mention Rush or Mark Levin, or Steve Doocy and Ainsley in the morning, and Brian and Laura, Jesse, Janine, I hope Janine's back soon.
She's back
Saturday. So many people. I mean, I don't want to keep going because I'm going to leave out so many, but I could again go so long. But so many great people have been, they get it. Nobody has been tougher, nobody on Russia than me. And everybody said, my enemies say that, when they're reasonable enemies, when they're fair. You look at the pipeline exposing that going into Germany. You look at oil with a number one. I mean, it's what we've done with energy and oil and gas, and that's all competition for Russia. You look at the Ukraine. You look at so many different levels. You look at our military. Look at the fact that we would have been powered by wind, which wouldn't have worked, by the way, because it only blows sometimes and lots of problems come about. But we are stronger now as a country than we've ever been. We're doing better financially than we've ever done. Our markets are hitting records all the time. I have many, many records of the highest stock market. People's 401ks are doing better than they've ever done by far. It's up almost 50% from the time I'm elected president, and other countries are way down. You look at China as an example. We're negotiating a deal with China. We're going to make a very good deal with China. China is way down. We're way up. But nobody has been tougher to Russia or on Russia than Donald Trump, President Trump. Nobody even close. And yet, with all of that, we want to have a great relationship with Russia. We want to have a great relationship with China. All of these things are smart to do. We'll do great with it. But nobody has been tougher. And when I watched all of this nonsense, it was fake news, just terrible fake news. The good news is, based on polls and based on other things, based on where we stand now with the public, Sean, the people never bought it. They get what's happening. Our country's doing fantastically well. More regulations cut than any other president, and that's only in 2 years. Nobody's come even close. The big tax cuts, so many things we're going to do. Incredible health care that the Democrats, frankly, wouldn't even know how to do. We're going to become the party of health care, the party of really good health care. We've done so much, and we have so much planned. So when I had to listen to CNN, which is so fake, so horribly fake, and I wouldn't listen often. Believe me, I wouldn't want to listen often. But whenever I did or whenever I saw it, I've never seen anything like they. And MSNBC, the same thing. The good news is I heard their ratings last night. Both of them they dropped off the folder. Yeah. They dropped to a level that nobody could believe, because now that they see the Mueller report, where you look at their finding, I mean, the finding was very, very strong. No collusion, no obstruction, no Russia, no nothing. And It's great. And I noticed your record, you had virtually record ratings last night. So that's because you have credibility. So I want to thank Fox. I want to thank some of those people I just named, but also many others. They've been so fantastic to me and really to our country. And I really do. They're really amazing people, great people. And it wasn't so easy for them.
So your thoughts on James Comey?
Well, he's right about that, for any reason. If you look at Article 2, for any reason. But despite that, that was an incorrect statement. And when you say what I said, there was nothing said wrong there, but they didn't play the whole interview. When they play the whole thing, you see it exactly. I mean, the fact is, it would only get worse, and I said this, it would only get worse if I fired him. I knew that it was going to get worse, not better. I'm not going to fire him and everything goes away. It would be a bigger deal if I fired him, and I knew that. So it was a negative, not a positive, and everybody knew that. But NBC didn't want to play it that way. They wanted to play it a different way. And when you talk about people that are dishonest, and when you talk about bad fake news, NBC, where we had The Apprentice for so many years as one of their most successful shows, NBC is as bad as CNN, I can tell you that.
Let me ask you, Adam Schiff is saying there's still collusion. By the way, I think one of the funniest tapes I've played on the show ever is the hoax when you have a Russian talking about compromising material on a naked Trump, which is, again, talked about, and he thinks it's shown to Putin, and he's literally colluding to get information so that he can impact our electoral system. But he's still, to this day, now, prior to the Mueller conclusion that there was no collusion, none, and it was quoted in the Attorney General's report, we had a 9-month FBI investigation. They said no collusion. Lisa Page and Peter Strzok said no collusion. The Senate committee said no collusion. The House committee said no collusion. That's all before 2 years of Mueller. But yet this guy is still pushing this conspiracy theory. Thoughts on Adam Schiff?
Well, Schiff is a bad guy because he knew he was lying. I mean, he's not a dummy, and he knew he was lying. And for a year and a half, he'd go on and just lie and leak and call up CNN and others and just, you know, I watch him, so sanctimonious, and gets on and says, oh, well, we want to talk about Russia. He knew it was a lie, and he'd get into the back room with his friends in the Democrat Party, and they would laugh like hell at what they were doing. It's a disgrace, and he knew it was a lie, and therefore, in one way, you could say it's a crime what he did, because he was making horrible statements that he knew were false. And frankly, you know, I heard they should force him off the committee or off the committee chair. He should be forced out of office. He is a disgrace to our country, and you have plenty of others. But he would go on night after night talking about collusion, the collusion delusion. And I will tell you this about Russia. If they had anything on me, it would have come out a long time ago, probably a long time before I ran, because they would have been better off, much better off. And I hope we really get along well with them, but they would have been a lot better off with Hillary Clinton as president in terms of energy, in terms of oil and gas. Look at what we're doing with the energy. It's incredible in our country. But that's a
first
bad
time
thing
in 75 years,
because it's competition for Russia. Hillary wouldn't have let you drill. There'd be no oil. There'd be no gas. There'd be no anything to compete. Russia, if they were at all for me, and by the way, if you look at all of the things, they were sort of for and against both, not just one way. But you look at all of the different things, Russia would much rather have Hillary than Donald Trump. I can tell you that right now.
After the election, I remember, and I was a little surprised because I know that a lot of the crowds, and you had a lot of big crowds, chanted "lock her up" on Hillary. And after the election, you said, you know what, let's move on. Do you feel that way today?
No, not really. I did feel that way very much. The night I won, they were all screaming, lock her up, lock her up. Look, she lost 33. They deleted 33,000 emails, and they were BleachBit. That's a big deal, and it's a very expensive process, and almost nobody does it because it's so expensive. But that's the way you really get rid of it. So she deleted 33,000 emails. Can you imagine if I did that? Supposing I did that, I gave millions of pages to these people that were
1.5 million.
In one case was involved with the Clinton Foundation. In another case, Weissman, you know all about Weissman, and many others. We gave Millions of pages, they found nothing. If they would have found one bad sentence out of millions of pages, believe me, it would have been front and center. It would have been front and center. But it's true, when on November 8th, 16, one of the great nights that a lot of people have had, because they came from the hills and the mountains, they came from the valleys, they came from everywhere, Sean, and it was an incredible evening. And, they've been rewarded because our job numbers, our unemployment numbers, all of the numbers that they really wanted are the best we've ever had. But I will say this. I said, let's get back on. Let's not think about the past. Let's think about the future. But now I think thinking about the past is just okay, because we can never let this happen again in our country or to another president. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking into the future. We can never allow these treasonous acts to happen to another president. This was an attempted takeover of our government, of our country, an illegal takeover. And if it were the other way around, where I was doing it to President Obama or a Democrat, it would be virtually the maximum sentence that you can find, no matter where you look in whatever legal book.